it's Bethany and Kristen here. Thanks so much for joining the conversation today. If you like what you see, go ahead and subscribe below. And if you want to support this channel, check us out on patreon.com/girldefined. I love this topic of beauty because I think it's something that most of us as women can relate to. Like,
I can.
We have been on a journey where we have struggled and wrestled with certain aspects of our physical features and feeling like we don't measure up. I remember
they're not
so
good enough,
many instances like hating my legs, hating my hair, hating my nose, hating my long neck, like so much stuff.
You are probably thinking of something right now about yourself where you're like,
it's so hard because we feel like in order to be beautiful, we need to look a specific certain way. And for each of us, I think that specific way might be a little different. So I was at the store the other day, checking out at the grocery store. I had my groceries. I'm perfectly content, minding my own business. And I hit the checkout aisle and I see this magazine. And on the front cover, there's this beautiful woman, but the title says World's Most Beautiful Woman. And I see that and I'm thinking, yeah, she's really beautiful, but how can this one woman with this one type of skin tone, one eye color, one hair color, how can she be the one most beautiful woman in the entire world, right? And we see that and we think, oh no, well, I'm looking at her thinking, I don't look anything like this woman. And I'm looking around at all these other women,
the other ladies
in the store, and we don't all look like this one woman, but we're often told, and we often feel that beauty is one thing. That
the
it's
one
not
thing that's
diverse
before us. Like, that's what's beautiful, and I'm not that. So what am I?
Yeah, so then I must be ugly, right? And that's what I was feeling in that moment. Like, I must be really ugly because I look nothing like her. And so instead of embracing the diversity that we have to offer as women, the beautiful differences of skin color and heights and eye color, nose shape, and
hair texture,
the diversity, we so often feel like in order to be beautiful, we need to fit a certain mold, and that in so many ways we all need to be exactly the same, but that's really not the case.
You know, I can totally relate to that, and I think it was really like subconsciously, like I didn't know that I was doing this, but I remember a few years back when we all went and we were laying outside trying to get a little bit of a tan, and you have skin that can get a tan. I have skin that burns, but I wasn't thinking like, oh, I want to go tan my skin because tan skin is beautiful and my skin's ugly. It was kind of like this subconscious thing where I was like, I want to lay out and get some sun on my skin because then I'll be more beautiful and I will just be more likable to people around me. I was thinking that deep in my heart, but didn't even realize it. So hour upon hour upon hour, I'm literally scorching out in the sun.
We were baking. We were just like, no sunscreen, full tan.
Yeah. I'm sure some of you have been there. If you have really pale skin like me, you can relate to the lobster status. That can happen if you're in the sun too long. But I remember the next day, I looked down and I'm like, oh my goodness, my legs were fried. My arms were fried. My skin was scorched. I started to get over the days huge blisters, like these huge bubbles on my legs. I literally still have scars today on my legs from that time. But what I realized is that I was struggling and believing the message, like you were saying, that this one type of skin tone or this one type of beauty is what I need to measure up to. And if I'm not, then I must not be truly beautiful. I never said that out loud, but I was believing that in my heart and I was struggling and I didn't feel like I measured up. So my question is, I think a lot of girls, a lot of women probably feel that way. How do we go from this place of struggling with our identity and
always
our
striving,
beauty,
never measuring up,
never
measuring
feeling
up,
pretty, to really having hope that no, we don't have to measure up to that standard? How do we get to that point?
For me, I remember coming to a place in my life where I was so tired, honestly, and just feeling hopeless of never measuring up, never being pretty enough, even feeling like you reach a certain place in life, like, oh, I'm pretty happy with my hair, happy with this, but there's still this inner dissatisfaction of like, you just see one thing and then you're right back at the start.
Something on social media.
All
it's like,
over
boom.
again. Yeah, and I just remember that struggle going on in my heart and longing for something, like just longing for hope, longing to get to a place where I could be totally content with who God made me to be. And so we both kind of went on a journey where we really dug into God's word. And there were a couple specific truths I remember hearing and for the first time feeling a sense of peace and a sense of like, wow,
relief.
Yes, relief. Like this makes so much sense. And so a few of the things that really on my own personal journey of beauty, I guess you could call it, were just a few things that God really used to help transform my thinking were the fact that one, that God designed me and so he defines my worth. So often we're trying to measure up and we're letting other people define what beauty is, when in reality, those people didn't make us. Those people didn't create us. And when I realized that, you know what? I'm giving a lot of people on social media, on this magazine
a lot of credit, a lot of authority.
Yeah, a lot of authority. What my friends think, I'm allowing them to define what beauty is. And then I'm basing my outward beauty according to their standards. So when I embrace the truth that God designed me, so he defines my worth, that was the first thing that changed everything for me. And the second thing that really transformed my thinking and brought hope was the fact that God handcrafted me to look just the way I do. And that's a big thing to accept because when we step back, and for me it was realizing that, you know what, the way I look isn't an accident. The fact that I am 6'1" as a woman, that you're 6'1" as a woman, that we're very tall, really tall, that we have very thin hair, that I have a really long neck, you know, all these different things about me that I have been very critical of over the years. When I realized and embraced the truth that God actually handcrafted me to look just the way I do, to look just like this, for you to look just the way, for you to look just the way you do, when we realize that God is good and he is a good designer and creator, and he handcrafted each of us to look just the way we do on purpose and for a purpose. I think for the first time I started to recognize that I'm not a mistake. The way I look is beautiful because the God of the universe handcrafted me to look this way, and he says it's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and like you mentioned, in that there's so much diversity, I don't think anyone is like excluded from these struggles. You know, it's not like, well, she probably doesn't struggle with this because she looks that way. Well, that girl can compare herself to all these other girls. So I think each individually, we each have those areas where we need to recognize, wow, God created me. He handcrafted me. And I personally have to work on this for myself, you know, and don't assume that everyone else's struggles are easy, because so often it's internal and we don't even verbally, you know, like a lot of people probably had no idea you were struggling with certain areas of your body. A lot of people probably didn't know I was. And this is something we continually have to work on.
There's a verse in Psalm 139 that was super instrumental for me, specifically just in helping me, I guess, redefine my perspective of beauty. And it's one that I think a lot of people are familiar with, but if you read it in the context of beauty and really think about what it's saying, it really is transformational. And it was transformational for me. So Psalm 139, 13 through 15 says, "For you," talking about God, "for you, God, formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was being made in secret, intricately woven in the depths of the earth." Now, if you ever wonder if your outward appearance, if the way you look is an accident, if you wonder if you should look different, this verse just spoke to me in such a personal way, because it's saying the God of the universe was there in those very first moments of my existence when I was being made, and he was handcrafting me to look exactly the way I do, with my personality, with the way, my eye color, my height at that moment in history.
And intricately woven.
I love how it says that.
Every single detail. It wasn't like, oh, the big picture, we kind of got it going. It's like blam, every single your nose, your eyes, your height.
And that's amazing. That is honestly incredible to think of, the intentionality that God had when he made us. And so knitting us together in our mom's womb. And then I love how the psalmist says, "I praise you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made." And I remember reading that and thinking, can I honestly look in the mirror and say, God, I praise you, for I know that you have made me fearfully and wonderfully. Like, no, so often in my life, I looked in the mirror and I'm like, God, what were you thinking? This is horrible. So I love that psalmist is taking it back to the Lord. Like, I praise you, God. And then he goes on to say, wonderful are your works. My soul knows it very well. And that also stood out to me because I think my soul doesn't know it very well, right? And if we actually believe these truths, I would be able to say, wonderful are your works. Wonderful are what you created. My soul knows it very well. Like, I'm confident in this. When people make comments about me, when they say I'm ugly, when I see a magazine and I don't look like the magazine, I can come back to this and say, no, wonderful are your works. My soul knows it well. So I can be anchored in that truth. And then last, the fact that our frame wasn't hidden from God when we were being made in secret, and like you said, intricately woven in the depths of the earth. Intricate, like handcrafted piece by piece. God made us to look just the way we do. And so I hope that's encouraging to you. I know this verse for both of us has been something that has taken us back to remind us of who we are, who God has made us to be, that we don't need to fit a cookie cutter mold. God didn't make us to look like every person out there, but handcrafted each of us on purpose to look just the way we do. And an illustration, you know, the flowers. Yes. I love talking about the flowers because if you think about a beautiful field of flowers, like wildflowers, we have those here in Texas, and the blue bonnets are starting to bloom.
Bonnets, all the different flowers that you see driving down the highway.
Yes, they're so pretty. And when I see a field and like we drive by those beautiful wildflowers, we don't think, man, I wish every flower was exactly the same.
I wish every flower were a sunflower.
Yeah, or like every flower, I don't know my wildflowers
I don't know
so I'm not even going to attempt. I was trying to think of one. Nope. But we look at the diversity and we say, wow, look at this. And I see that and I say, God is so creative. He designed the flowers to be uniquely different on purpose so that together they make a beautiful display. And as cheesy as this might sound, we honestly, y'all, we are like flowers. God created each of us as women to look different, to be unique, to be diverse, so that when we come together as women, we don't look the same, but instead we reflect the incredible creative God that we have.
We showcase this creativity.
We showcase it.
It's like, he has so much creativity to think of all of that, and we get to display that. Like, that's really awesome.
Right, and it's something that I think when we recognize it and when we see it in that light, we can come together with people who look different than us, and then rather than competing, like, I need to look more like her,
jealous.
I need to look more, and jealous and envious and making rude comments about one another, we can instead embrace our diversity and say, girlfriend, like, you are so pretty. God made you to look that way, and it's gorgeous. We can say that about one another.
I love your nose, or no, I love
it really
your lip shape. Like, you got nice lips. Like, praise our girlfriends, or praise, the girls around us for the wonderful things that God has given them, instead of going to sleep like, I hate her because she has everything I want.
So embracing that truth that God handcrafted us to look just the way we do, that God designed us so he defines our worth. For me, those were life-changing, embracing those truths. And I know for you too, you have a very similar journey. Those were life-changing for us. And the last thing that really helped me kind of get outside of myself was recognizing that I wasn't made just randomly, but I was made by God, and I was made to glorify God. I was made to use my body, to use all of this 6'1" of me, my personality, my gifts, how I look. I was made to use that not just for myself, not just for selfish gain,
not just to get the likes.
Not just to get the likes and comments, but ultimately to use my life to point back to Christ, to glorify him, for it to not end here, like, well, girlfriend, you're awesome, but like, wow, the amazing creative God that made you, he is so awesome. Look what he's done. And I love Psalm 86:12. I just love the Psalms. There's so much great stuff in there.
Very practical.
But it's a psalm that just helps me take the thoughts off of myself, because the more I honestly think about myself and start criticizing myself, evaluating myself, the worse I feel and the more discontent I become. But I know it's the same for most of us. When we get our eyes off of ourselves and start looking outward and we start praising God, it really changes our hearts.
There's a lot of hope. Like, it's not all like consumed in us. It's like, it's like free.
Yeah, it really is. So Psalm 86:12 says, I give thanks to you, O Lord my God, with my whole heart, right? Not part of your heart, like with my whole heart, and I will glorify your name forever. And so that Psalm 86:12 is just such an amazing prayer, honestly. If you're struggling, when I'm struggling, to take a psalm and pray something like that back to the Lord, giving thanks to him and saying, God, I love you with my whole heart, and I will glorify your name forever. And just taking it back to what really matters, that God is awesome. He made us on purpose for a purpose, and we can glorify him in our uniqueness, and then use our bodies and our physical appearances to serve him and to serve those around us.
So if you find yourself in a place of struggle, or you remember a time where you have struggled, we just want you to know that you don't have to stay that way. You don't have to stay in a place where you look around and you say, wow, I don't measure up. I don't feel worthy. I don't feel valuable. We both have been there, and we know you and many of you others that watching have probably been there as well, but there is hope. There is freedom from this struggle because of who Christ is, what he's done for us, and really the fact that he created us, and then he says, girl, you are valuable. You are worthy because I made you. You can praise me for this. You don't have to stay in this place of struggle. All those points that you just made in those verses you just read, we'll list those below so you can write those down, so you can look up those verses in your own Bible, and you can have those before you to say, God, please help me to believe this for myself. Please help me to make this true for me, because I'm struggling. I don't feel like I was intricately made. I don't want to praise you in this. I don't want to give you glory. I don't want to use my body to glorify you because I'm struggling. But he truly can transform your heart, and he can transform your mind and really change the way that you view yourself and really change the way that you live as a result. We've experienced that, and we want you to experience that as well. In closing, we would love to hear from you in the comments below. We would love to carry on this conversation. I want to know, how would your perspective of beauty, your personal beauty, like of yourself, change if you truly believed the passage we read, Psalm 139:13-15? I want you to read that, look it up, and then answer that question below. Comment letting us know how your perspective of beauty would change. If you like what you see,
okay, so now I've got to get into this topic. We're like two like this, like more relaxed. It's like that was so dumb, the ending.
Right though.
To this idea of beauty, but
and then go, we gotta move quicker.
Yeah, we're back in the ice.